Hey guys, what is up? My name is Lynon and welcome to the Jersey Zone. So today I want to do a video talking about the Stanley Cup final matchup in between the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now I did want to do more of these kind of preview slash prediction videos during the course of the NHL playoffs here. Unfortunately, I only ended up doing one video for the first round. I wanted to do them kind of one video per round and not do one video per series, but with just the way the NHL kind of did these playoffs here, they made it so one round was starting before one round actually ended. So I only ended up doing that first video there. But in that video, my predictions were way off, man. They were so far off. I think I only got two predictions actually right in that video, so it wasn't really that great of a prediction video, but I did have a lot of fun making it, and that's why I'm making this one here. Now, I'm not going to go super in-depth with like the stats and everything here, mostly because of the fact that there's so many other hockey YouTubers that will go into that deep dive and talk about, the power play percentages and like the shooting percentages and all that kind of stuff. There's plenty of other hockey YouTubers that will talk about kind of stuff like that. I'm just going to talk about like what I've seen with each individual team and where I think this matchup will end up going. But first off, let's talk about their journey to get here. So let's go with the Montreal Canadiens here and see how they ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So obviously in their first round, they did end up playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they ended up beating the Toronto Maple Leafs in 7 games, overcoming a 3-1 series deficit. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, I am a Maple Leafs fan, so that series was pretty heartbreaking to me. It was a little bit unfortunate. I'm still slightly salty about that series, not gonna lie. I'm more mad at the Leafs than I am about the Canadiens. The Leafs kind of blew that series in my opinion, although the Canadiens did start playing really well once Game 5 started. But really, once that Game 5 hit, I feel like we've been watching a much different Montreal Canadiens team. Since that 3-1 series deficit, they have been way different in my opinion. They have been a lot stronger, just a lot better defensively, and Carey Price has been fantastic. Really just since that Game 5, it's been like a flick of a switch, and they have been just on fire ever since. I think they are a completely different team than they were in the regular season, and I think up to that Game 4, they were still kind of the same team they were in the regular season. But since that Game 5 against the Leafs, they have been way better. But once they beat Toronto, they ended up sweeping the Jets in 4. They went on to the Vegas Golden Knights, and they ended up winning that series in 6. Now, for me personally, I bet against Montreal every single time, and I feel like most people did as well. There were some people who, like, by the time they actually got to the Vegas Golden Knights, they started to kind of sway their opinion a little bit more towards Montreal and started believing in them a little bit more. For myself, maybe it was a little bit of salt, but I still wasn't quite there yet. I was one of those people who saw the Montreal Canadiens going up against the Vegas Golden Knights and went, they got no shot, man. They really don't. But they have 100% proved me wrong. They are a much better team. Like I said, I was still probably thinking about the team that started in the regular season, but that's not who they are anymore. They're not that regular season team. They are a playoff team, and they're a very good playoff performer, and they've shown that with these playoffs here, and they showed that a little bit with last playoffs as well. I know, at least I kind of forget about it because I just look at the regular season stats and go, that is who they are. They are that regular season team. I mean, they played the 70 games last year where they were 24th in the league, and then they played the 56 games this year where they were 18th in the league, and that's who they are. But they had a really good playoffs last year, even though they were knocked out in the first round, and then they had a really good playoffs this year so far, obviously, with them being in the Stanley Cup final. But when you are talking about the Canadiens this year, one thing that you need to look at for the playoffs here is Phillip Danault. He has been spectacular in these playoffs. He shut down Matthews in the first round. He shut down, well, he didn't have to shut down Scheifele because, as he put it himself, the player safety shut him down, which I just love that. I think it's so funny. I found it absolutely hilarious when he said that. And then when they faced up against Vegas, once again, he has been fantastic in that series. He's just been really good all playoff long, just shutting down every single opponent that he's gone up against. He doesn't really have the points to go with it, but who cares? You're shutting down top line players. That's kind of what's important. I mean, you look at the Vegas series there, their forwards only scored 5 goals in those 6 games. That is crazy. Most of their production came from the back end, and that's very impressive. You can't just contribute all of that to Phillip Danault, but that is a very impressive stat that they only allowed 5 goals from the Vegas forwards in 6 games. That is extremely impressive, and a lot of that is also on Carey Price as well, who has been amazing in these playoffs. So once again, he is showing that he isn't done yet, and I will be honest, I am once again one of those people who, when I looked at Carey Price, I was like, well, I don't know if he's going to be that great again. Like, I mean, you looked at like the playoffs last year where he was good in the playoffs last year, but he comes back in the regular season this year and he's just okay. He's had some injuries. He's coming off an injury going into the playoffs. And I was kind of like, I don't know how he's going to play. I mean, we'll see, but I don't think he's going to be that great. but he's showing us like he's fantastic. Like he is the carry price that you come to expect, and he's just been phenomenal in these playoffs, and he's showing that he is a playoff performer, and so is most of the team. I mean, you look at Corey Perry, for example. He hasn't really been that great in the regular season for the past couple of seasons, but in the past 2 seasons, he has been fantastic in the playoffs, and he's been a really key part in both the playoff runs for Dallas last year and the Canadiens this year. He's a really key guy for them. And then you have Suzuki, who's been playing really well, and you got to talk about Caulfield as well, who has been really key for the Montreal Canadiens, scoring key goals and playing just extremely well. He's done a lot better than I kind of expected him to, but he's been fantastic in these playoffs as well. And one thing that I've noticed with the Canadiens in these playoffs this year is they're really good at capitalizing on their chances. I feel like they don't get a ton of chances, but when they do, I feel like they end up putting them in the back of the net, especially on their rush chances as well. I do think they get a good amount of them, and majority of the time when they get those rush chances, I feel like they do end up in the back of the net. I mean, that happened with the Vegas series. The series winning goal ended up being a rush chance with Lehkonen getting that game winner. So they are really good at capitalizing on their chances, and that's one thing that Tampa really does have to make sure that they try and cut down on, is those rush chances, because I feel like if the Canadiens do get those chances, they're probably going to put them in the back of the net. But with that being said, let's move on to the Tampa Bay Lightning side of everything. So looking at their journey, they first started off against the Florida Panthers. They ended up winning that series in 6. Then they moved on to Carolina, won that series in 5, and finally went to the Islanders and won that series in 7. And once again, I bet against the Lightning for 2 of the 3 playoff rounds. Against the Panthers, I had the Panthers winning in 7, although that was a little bit more of hope. I do kind of like Florida a little bit there, and I'm hoping that they do well. But obviously, as a Leafs fan, I don't want them doing well in a division where the Leafs are in the same division. So since they weren't in the same division as the Leafs this year, I wanted them to do well, and I wanted them to at least win a round. They couldn't end up doing that, unfortunately. Then against Carolina, I once again picked Carolina. I picked them in 7 games, I believe. But once again, that is a little bit more of hope. I do really like Carolina as well, and I want them to do well. And then against the Islanders, I just said, screw it. Tampa's probably going to win that. I kind of looked at the last series last year against the Islanders as well. Tampa won it in 6, and I was like, Tampa will win it in 6 again. They were close. They won it in 7. But when you're talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning this year and looking at their playoffs, there's a couple places you can start. I'm going to start off with Brayden Point. He has been phenomenal in these playoffs this year so far. He obviously had that 9-game goal streak there that ended in Game 7 against the Islanders. He almost broke the record for the playoff goal streak. I think the highest is 10. I don't remember who has that. And overall in these playoffs, he does have 14 goals. He has been just absolutely phenomenal in these playoffs. He's a fantastic player, and he really does pick himself up. He really is that playoff performer that most teams would like to have. And even in the regular season, he's still really good, but he just seems to up his game in the playoffs, which is pretty insane because he's a really good regular season player as well. And of course, you can also talk about Vasilevsky as well, who has been just fantastic and just out of this world pretty much since that series in 2019 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. He has just been so good since then. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that in series clinching games, he's had 4 consecutive shutouts, which is just insane to think about. He is just so good in that net there. And I feel like some people kind of like underrate him in a way because he has such a good team in front of him, which he does. He has a fantastic team. In my opinion, I think the Lightning are the best team in the NHL, the most well-built team in the NHL. I don't really think they have a weak position at all. But even so, I still think Vasilevsky is the best goaltender in the league, even without that defense in front of him and just that team in front of him. I do think he is just a very, very good goaltender. And then you do have to talk about the situation where the Lightning are $18 million over the cap in this offseason here, or in the playoffs here, I should say. Now, for me personally, I understand where people are complaining, and I understand where why people are upset about it and everything like that. Personally, I am not. It's in the rules where you are allowed to go over in the playoffs, and I personally don't really see them holding out Kucherov for the entire season just to bring him in for the playoffs. I do think he was actually injured. Maybe they held him out for a week or 2, but I really can't see anything more than that. Just personally, I don't see a professional athlete being okay with just not playing in the regular season. I feel like most athletes, especially hockey athletes, I feel like they wouldn't want to do that. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just my opinion personally. But anyways, with that aside, Kucherov has been just phenomenal in these playoffs. He has 27 points in 18 games, just so good. I mean, I don't really know how you can be that good after not playing for an entire season, but he still is. And he's obviously the top point scorer with the Tampa Bay Lightning. When you compare that for the top point scorer with the Montreal Canadiens, it's Tyler Toffoli with 14 points in 17 games. So it's a pretty big difference. Although Montreal games do tend to be a little bit more low scoring, Tampa also did have that 8-0 game against the Islanders, so that does help a little bit with that point total and everything like that. But then again, looking at Kucherov in that game 7, he did look extremely injured, and I'm wondering how injured he actually is, how much he'll actually play in this series against Montreal. Because if he doesn't play, that is a big hit to the Tampa Bay Lightning roster there. I'm going to guess that he probably will. Whatever injury he has, he's probably going to try and play through it. I'm just wondering how much he will actually be able to play. But stepping back here and looking at the rosters in between the Canadiens and the Lightning, if you look at the forward group, I much prefer the Lightning's forward group. I think the Lightning's forward group is a lot better than the Canadiens. If you're looking at the defense, I think it is a little bit closer. I still prefer the Lightning's defense though. And if you're looking at the goaltending, it is extremely close. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of a saw-off there. If you choose Price, you choose Price. I'm personally going to go with Vasilevsky. I think Vasilevsky is just a little bit better, and I do think he is the best goaltender in the league right now. But if you take Price, I really don't blame you. I totally get it. I think that is a saw-off, and that's the only position where it is basically neck and neck. But with that being said, if you look at every single other series the Canadiens have played, they were, in my opinion at least, the worst roster. But guess what? They still won. They still outperformed their teams. They outworked the other teams. And honestly, in the playoffs, sometimes it's just about momentum. And the Montreal Canadiens right now are a Cinderella story. They have the momentum. And for me personally, that's why I'm going to take them to win this series. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to win the 2021 Stanley Cup. I think it's probably going to happen in 6 or 7 games. I do think it's going to be a very close series, but I do have the Canadiens winning it. And for me, it's not easy saying that because, like I said, I am a Leafs fan. I do not want the Canadiens to win. And I'm not on like the bandwagon of, you know, the Canadiens are Canada's team, so you got to cheer for Canada's team. You got to have the cup back in Canada because it hasn't been in Canada since 1993. For me, I don't care, man. I really don't. Most of the players on American teams are Canadians anyway, so majority of the time, the cup ends up coming back to Canada anyways. I do not care if it's a Canadian team that is going to win the cup. Really doesn't matter to me. The only time that I would cheer for a Canadian team to win the cup is if it's Vancouver, because I like Vancouver, and the Flames. Everyone else, it depends on the matchup. And with Montreal, I'm pretty much never going to cheer for them to win the cup, but I do think they are going to win it this year. I think they just have that magic, and sometimes you just need that magic, and the Canadiens have it this year. They have been playing phenomenal. They're really good, and they are capitalizing on their chances. Now, in all that being said, I do want Price to get a cup. He is the only Canadiens player that I look at and go, yeah, I would like him to get a cup. Everyone else, I don't care. I really don't. With Price, I do think he needs a cup, and I do think he deserves a cup. I do really want Price to get a cup, so there is like a very, very small part of me that is like, well, it would be nice if the Canadiens do win, but every single other part of me, especially being a Leafs fan, is like, nah, I don't want them to win. But like I said, I do think they are going to end up winning this series. I do think they will win the cup this year. But yeah, anyways, that is going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked this video, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to follow me on my Instagram and my Twitter at the Jersey Zone YT on Instagram and at the Jersey Zone on Twitter. Links are in the description down below. But like I said, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.